in, everybody. Take your seats. Class is in session. Today I have another recap for you, and that is for the Infatuated Fae series. First book, How Does It Feel? Second book, What Did You Do? Third book is being released January 28th. I was actually lucky enough to get my hands on an ARC copy of this book. If you don't know what an ARC is, that is just an advanced reader's copy, usually sent by the publishers or by the author, and it's to get it in the hands of people who will review the book, talk about the book, get a little bit of hype out before the book's release. And let me tell you, I have read it. More on that later. I am so honored to be here today reviewing and recapping this series. If you haven't had a chance to reread both of these books before the third book's release, you're in luck. A little bit of a disclaimer. I'm not going chapter by chapter, scene by scene, breaking down every little detail of these books. I like to make my recaps a little bit more of like a conversation, a little bit more of like a storytelling type recap. Also, at the end of this video, I do have a special guest who is joining it. I can't really keep a secret from you, okay? It's Janine O'Reilly herself. I was able to get her in an exclusive interview for me and you here on YouTube with all of the questions that we have about the Infatuated Fae series and just an inside scoop on Janine O'Reilly herself. If you follow me over on my Instagram, I asked the other day any questions that you would have for Janine O'Reilly, and so I took your input and I asked her myself, and that interview is at the end of this recap. It feels really cool to be giving another recap of How Does It Feel? I actually have another video on my YouTube. It's like way in the beginning. Please don't go watch it, please. It's not good. It's like when I first was figuring out YouTube. I can't even bring myself to watch it, but it's cool that I'm sitting here again recapping How Does It Feel? Me and this book are forever bonded. This is my first ever viral video, and still to this day, it is my most viral video, and arguably it is the most unhinged reaction I have had to the ending of a book. Okay, without further ado, let's get into the damn plot. It starts with our girl Callie. Now, when you start this book, you're like, I thought this was fantasy. Everyone said that this was fantasy. Where is the fantasy? And you have to wait until, let me get the exact chapter for you. Chapter 7, page like 67 in the book. I don't know why I'm breaking this down to you. This is a recap. You should know this, and let me, before we move any further, tell you that this is full of spoilers. This is a spoiler. I'm spoiling everything about the plot. This is to refresh your memory of these two books if you haven't had a chance to read them. If you have not had a chance to read them, what are you doing here, girl? Don't spoil it for yourself. There's no amount of recap that I can do for these books that will give it justice. You have to take the time to go sit down and read them. If you spoil the plot for yourself by watching this video, shame on you. Now that we got that out of the way, the first 60 or so pages are of Callie, who is in Michigan, and she's kind of a loner. She's all by herself, and she's okay with that. There's something very clear about Callie from the beginning, is that she has this weird attraction to animals, and not attraction in the form of like looking at them and thinking they're beautiful. I mean, she loves animals, don't get me wrong, but not like attraction in that sense. I'm talking like animals are like attracted, like think Snow White. Dorothy the turkey. We remember Dorothy, don't we? Not only is it Dorothy the turkey that is weirdly drawn to Callie, there's also instances where you have the bunnies that she was trying to release off into the wild, but they wouldn't go anywhere. They wanted to stay where Callie was. And there was also an instance with a fox who Callie saw out in the daytime, which is really weird and odd because you don't usually see foxes out in the daytime. On top of that, we also learned that Callie is a biologist whose whole life purpose at this point is to find the Luna moth. She just wants to see it. She wants to lay eyes on a Luna moth, and she knows that Luna moths are attracted to this particular mushroom, and if she was able to find this mushroom, maybe she would be able to find the Luna moth. And this particular mushroom is a poisonous mushroom, so if she was able to find it, maybe she would be able to come up with some sort of like antidote for the Luna moth in order to help them survive and thrive. In order to do this, Callie gets a microscope, and this is something that she's so excited about. She's put a lot of money into this microscope, and she thinks because she has this microscope, it's going to lead her straight to the cure for these Luna moths. Callie also volunteers at her local library. One night when she was there on her way home, she was walking out of the library and she sees this person walking out with a stack of books about mushrooms. This really piques Callie's interest because she's a little bit of a nerd and she's a biologist. So this is like, who is this person who's also interested in all of these mushrooms? And that happens to be Crazy Earl. Now, Crazy Earl is like this town drunk. People think Crazy Earl is crazy. He didn't earn that nickname for nothing, okay? But Callie is like, Crazy Earl, why do you have all these books on the mushrooms that I am also curious in? And Callie learns that Crazy Earl was also a biologist at one point. He's now retired, and a lot of the information that Crazy Earl has on mushrooms could help Callie in her research. There's one scene that I would like to note about both of them, Crazy Earl and Callie, geeking out over Callie's microscope. I thought that was adorable. But eventually gets to the point where Crazy Earl tells Callie, I know exactly what mushroom you're looking for, and it's called a destroying angel mushroom, and I also happen to know exactly where you can find them. And Callie is feral over this information. She's like, Crazy Earl, you're exactly who I've been looking for this entire time. Please take me to this mushroom. When they are in the forest on their way to, you know, forage for this mushroom, some weird shit starts to happen and Crazy Earl starts to get real uncomfortable. You could tell that he's unsettled about something, and Callie is like, okay, there's a reason they call this man crazy. Okay, because he's starting to act a little sketchy right now, but that doesn't matter. I'm about to find the destroying angel. I just need this mushroom. Crazy Earl, calm down, please. Take me to the mushroom. And this is where Crazy Earl starts to rambling about how these mushrooms are actually a portal to a fairy realm, and that they're actually really dangerous. And you could tell that Crazy Earl is really uncomfortable getting closer to the destroying angel, but Callie will do anything and everything to get this mushroom because it's her whole life purpose at this point. Long story short, they end up finding the mushroom, but that's not to say that there wasn't still crazy shit happening, like a real intense weather change. Crazy Earl is still rambling about how dangerous and how he's seen some shit and that we need to get out of here because there's danger around the corner. But Callie's like, I need this mushroom. She grabs it, they run back to the car. Callie has the mushroom and they want to celebrate this discovery, and they are going to go out on the town later that night. So Crazy Earl takes Callie back to her house and he's like, okay girl, see you later, see you at 9 p.m. or whatever it is. I'm gonna pick you back up and we're gonna go out and get some drinks. And while Callie's getting ready, you know, she has her hair done, makeup done, heels on, she's ready to go. But she's like, what am I forgetting? I'm forgetting something. Oh my God, I forgot my microscope in the forest. And the craziness of everything that was happening when we were out earlier and all like this eerie feeling that I was feeling, I dropped my microscope. I have to cancel my plans with Crazy Earl. I have to go get my microscope. But the thing about Callie, she doesn't have a car. Or she had a car, but her car was like, it was like on its last leg for real. And so she did have a lawnmower though. Yeah, she did have a lawnmower. And so that was her only option. And she was going to take her lawnmower into the forest to retrieve her microscope. And this leads to one of my favorite fan arts right here. Here, let me grab it. This fan art right here. Look how good Callie looks on that lawnmower. Look at her. She is on her way to retrieve her microscope. Little did Callie know, when she was on her way to retrieve her microscope, she was confronted with a fox. Now this is the same fox that she saw out gallivanting, what's that word that people use? Galloping. She saw the fox galloping. No, that's not the right word. That's not what I'm looking for. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. She saw that fox out in the daytime and people were like, that's weird. That fox has rabies. Stay away from that fox. She saw the same fox guarding her microscope. And while this is happening, Callie notices that there's Luna moss floating around. The same Luna moss that Callie has been hunting for. And it's not just one Luna moth, it's not just 5 Luna moths, it's a whole flock of Luna moths. And Callie's heart starts to go pitta-patta, pitta-patta. Also, she happens to notice that where that mushroom was earlier, there's no longer just one mushroom. There's several mushrooms, and they all form a circle. And Callie's like, oh my god, that's so weird. That's so interesting. What would happen if I step in the middle of these mushrooms? And then she falls into a fairy portal. Not only did she fall into any fairy portal, she fell into the Unseelie fairy portal, fell on top of Prince Mandex, who happens to despise humans. And at first, everyone around them thinks that they're under attack. They think that, you know, they're being attacked by the Unseelie court, and they're like, oh my god, they found us. They're here to kill us. And Kelly's like, oh my god, wait, everybody calm down. What's happening? I don't know what's happening. I just got here by accident. Please, everybody, can we talk about this? And Prince Mandex is like, you are fucking disgusting. You're a human. I can't even look at you. I can't even believe that you're here. Somebody kill this bitch right now. Now, did he say that verbatim? No. But I feel like he would have. I feel like he could have said that for real. And so two of Mandex's guards do a little stabby stabby of Callie, and they send her back to the human realm, clinging to life. When Callie gets back to the human realm, there's this fox who's there, the same fox who's been there this whole time in the storyline, who's like, not talking because it's a fox, right? Starts licking Callie's wounds, and Callie is like, the fuck? I'm dying and you're licking me. And he actually cries on top of her wound, and it heals her. She's like, oh my god, what the fuck just happened? I can't believe this. And while she's like walking back to like recover from this, the same prince who she fell on top of in the Unseelie court comes back to grab her, and he's like, who the fuck are you? Who sent you here? You're an assassin, aren't you? You're an assassin, and you were sent to kill me. Well, you're not that very good of an assassin, because you couldn't kill me even if you wanted to. No matter how hard you try, you could never kill me. And Callie's like, well, I'm not an assassin. I don't know what happened. I just ended there on accident. Mandex isn't hearing any of this. He actually kidnaps Callie back to the Unseelie court, and he keeps her as his pet. I'm gonna keep the rest of the recap for How Does It Feel on the shorter side, because I could sit here and yap about this book forever, but I feel like most of the recap needs to be focused around what did you do, because Where Did You Go is coming out, and I've read this book, and I feel like we need to focus on some important details that happen here. So in order to not keep this video forever long story short, Mandex has this distaste for humans. He's absolutely repelled by humans. He despises them, and he is from the Unseelie court, and this is known as the bad realm. People don't like the Unseelies. They are bad people. They are ruthless. They are murderers. No good nobodies. Stay away from the Unseelie realm. The good realm is the Seelie court, where a lot of, you know, it's the sunshine, rainbows, butterflies. We love the Seelie court, hate the Unseelie. They are dark people. But Mandex has this weird fascination with Callie, which he has never had before in his entire life, which this is really weird, because Callie, not only is Callie just this person that Mandex is fascinated by, but she's human. And that is like, no Shadow Slayer should be infatuated with a human. But Mandex is. And he's just waiting for her to die, essentially. Like, he wants to see her die. And so he decides to put her in 3 separate trials. And he's like, girl, these are going to be some really tough, brutal trials. But if you can survive these trials, I'll let you live. I'll send you back to the human realm. But there's literally no way you're going to survive these trials, because you're a pathetic human. So I'm going to watch you die, and I'm going to be happy about it. If we haven't gathered that Mandex is completely psychotic and unhinged on every level, this would be a good reminder for you. Like, I can't move on in talking about the trials until I mention the forest bog. Now, when I first read this book, I didn't really think too much of it, and I don't know what that says about me. When I read the scene with the forest bog, I was like, ugh, that is severely disturbing. But yeah, okay, sure. This is the honorary bog mention, but we must move forward with the plot of How Does It Feel. Remember, Callie has 3 trials that she has to survive. While all the trials are going on, there's a lot of hype surrounding this because there's a human in the Unseelie realm. A lot of people are viewing this as some sort of form of entertainment. A lot of people can come and watch the trials whenever they're happening, and so this gathers a lot of attention from the Seelie realm. On their way to meet with the Seelie realm, Mandex's mother comes up with this idea that if Mendex was to marry Callie and be bonded to her, this would be perfect because then Mendex would be able to ascend to the throne. See, the thing is Mendex killed his father in How Does It Feel? We don't know why. We do learn in What Did You Do? But we know that he killed his father. But in order for him to ascend to the throne, he needs to be bonded and married. And Mendex's mother was like, if you marry Callie, this will be perfect because there's no way she's going to survive the rest of these trials. So you can be bonded to her, ascend to the throne, and then we kill her. And Mendex is like, I don't know about this. And Callie for sure is like, hell no, I do not support this. When they were at the meeting with the Seelie, Mendex gets really jealous of one of the Seelie princes, whenever he touches Callie, and they are like, oh my god, Callie, you're with the Unseelie. Those are no good nobodies. Come over to the Seelies. We'll take care of you. And Mendex is like, you laid a hand on my pet? I'm gonna rip your head off. And he did. And he did. He ripped one of the prince's heads off and demanded that his mother bond him to Callie in that moment, in which she did, and now Callie is bonded to Mendex. And then the rest of the trials resume all throughout this book. Ever since Mendex met Callie, he has labeled her as an assassin. Damn near every interaction this man has had with this woman, he has said, you are an assassin sent here to kill me. I know it, girl. You don't have to pretend. I see right through your stupid little facade. You want to kill me. I know you do. I don't know why, and I don't really care because I love you. I'm falling in love with you. Callie always denies this. She keeps getting frustrated with Mendex. Why do you keep calling me an assassin? I'm not an assassin. But then we get to the 3rd trial, where Mendex is, dare I say, shaking in his boots a little bit, scared for Callie, and he wants her to live. So he tries to go to his mother, tries to figure out what's the last trial. The last trial, it's going to be in a big coliseum. There's going to be 2 doors. One door is going to have the fairy portal back to the human realm, and the other door is going to have a murderous creature who Callie is not going to stand a chance against. She will have no weapons, she will be defenseless, and if she opens the door with the creature on the other end, she will just die, like, instantly, okay? And so Mendex thinks he knows what the right door is. He tells Callie right before the trial is about to start. He realizes he was bamboozled by his mother. His mother realized that Mendex was getting a little too close to Callie. Callie's not supposed to survive these trials, so she lied to her son, gave him the wrong door number. He realizes, goes down into the arena to try to help defend Callie, in which he is. He's helping defeat the creature. Mendex kills the creature, and Callie goes to give him a hug. A little thank you for saving my life. But really she stabs him right in the back, right in between the wings, like It's supposed to be a killing blow to Shadow Slayers, to Mendex's kind. We learn at the end of How Does It Feel that Callie was in fact an assassin. And I'm telling you, for some reason I really believed her. I didn't really know where this book was going when I was reading it, but I for sure was on Callie's side. I believed her when she said she was an assassin. Imagine my surprise when she wakes back up in the human realm. She's in the hospital. Guess who's at her side? Crazy Earl. Guess who Crazy Earl actually is? He's her old friend Eli from childhood, who has glamored himself as like this older crazy guy in order to help guide Callie to finding the portals. And remember, there's moments all throughout How Does It Feel where Callie is remembering her old friend from childhood, Eli, and like wanting to get back to him, trying to remember, like, how is she gonna get back to Eli? At the end of the book, we learn that Crazy Earl was Eli the whole damn time and was actually the fox that was presenting himself to Callie during the daytime and saved her life that one time. Then we learn that, you know, you can come back to the Seelie court and get your whole heart again. You can come back, you're welcomed in the Seelie court again. What do you mean by this? The way I believed her, the way that I was on her side. And that's how book one ended. And that is why I was completely distressed. I feel like I forgot to tell you the part about Walter. This is actually my second time filming this recap because I went to upload the footage onto my computer and guess what? The footage was corrupted. I think my camera got overheated, and when that happens, it like deletes the footage. I don't remember in this second round of filming the recap if I mentioned Walter. We meet Walter essentially at the same time we meet the Bog when Callie is in the prison. And Walter is Mandex's brother, but Walter is also a shapeshifter. He shapeshifts into rats, and Callie has that attraction to animals. Walter was battling his loyalty to his brother, Mendex, and his like pull towards Callie. Ultimately, he tried to help Callie escape back to the human realm, but Mendex ended up catching him do this, and he felt like this deep sense of betrayal and threw him over the side of the Unseelie castle. So by the end of How Does It Feel, we thought Walter was dead, but Walter was one of the only people who was trying to help Callie when she was stuck in Unseelie. Remember in How Does It Feel where we thought that the Seelie was like sunshine, rainbows, happy, good times? We learned quite quickly in What Did You Do that maybe this isn't true. Maybe the queen of the Seelie court, Queen Saracen, is a little delulu. So the thing about What Did You Do is we have multiple POVs, dual POV and also past and present POV, which is interesting. Bullet point number 1. Queen Saracen is actually fucking delulu. She's actually the enemy. She is the representative of the Seelie court, but we learn that she is just power hungry and she wants to dominate both realms. In order to do this, she was having an affair with the Unseelie king at the time, who was Mendex's father, and they were trying to come up with a plan where they would kill their significant others, get rid of their children, and come together and rule both of the realms. And it boiled down to the time where they were planning to kill their significant others. Saracen went through with it, killed the Seelie queen, Eli's dad, and she thought that Felix, Mendex's father, had killed Mendex, but Mendex picked up on that his father was about to betray him, so Mendex actually ended up killing Felix, which really threw a wrench into Queen Saracen's plan. During the assassination of the Seelie king, Saracen's husband, she discovers that he was actually the guardian of one of his friends named Zeph, who has now ascended to be a fate, but he was the guardian of his children. So the thing about fates and their children is that they can have children known as Artemi. Now they can only have one. They can have all the offspring they want, but they can only have one child who is an Artemi. Now an Artemi is a really powerful being in the realms. They have significant power, and Queen Saracen discovers one of these two children that her husband was trying to protect. She discovers that one of them could possibly be an Artemi. So she starts to develop this plan where she's going to weasel her way into these people's life, somehow use this to her advantage. Book 1 also ends where we thought Mendex was dead, but surprise, he's not dead. He's not dead. He's alive, and he's now stalking Callie. He's stalking Callie because in his mind, she belongs to him. And meanwhile, Callie is in the Seelie court with ulterior motives of her own. There is underlying themes all throughout What Did You Do that Callie is keeping a secret and that she has this game plan. And all throughout it, it seems like she doesn't want to hurt Eli, who is her closest friend, but it seems like whatever her plan is will hurt him in the end. Callie still has some of her Smoke Slayer abilities. When she bonded with Mendex, she got some of his shadow daddy abilities, shadow mommy, if you will. And so when she first met with the queen, she realizes that Callie is wielding shadows, and she's like, oh my god, you are an Artemi who also is a shadow slayer. Oh my god, we can become like one of the most powerful courts ever. But you have to marry Eli, your bestie, if you want your whole heart again. And if you want to become a Seelie royal, you're gonna have to marry Eli. In order to understand why Callie gave up half of her heart in the first place and why she's trying to make her heart whole again, we have to jump back to the past POV. Now, I'm doing this recap out of order in which the story is told in the book, but makes the most sense to talk it out loud. In the past, we learn that Queen Saracen hunted down Callie, and she was in the human realms, and that's just kind of where Zeph, her father, who is now an ascended fate, felt it was safest for her to live her life. She was there with her mother, her sister Adriana, and her, so it's just the three of them. Had a strong inkling that Callie was the child who was the Artemi, because remember, only one of the siblings could be Artemi, and decided to kill her mother and her sister in order to kind of have Callie as her own, if you will. Callie knew that Queen Saracen was the reason why her mother and her sister had died in a car crash. And this is really where her plot for revenge started. But she was just a child at the time. In order to get in Queen Saracen's good graces until she could have the power to eventually assassinate her, she was like, you can have half of my heart to keep my Artemi powers at bay and know that I will do anything that you need me to do until I prove myself to you that I am in allegiance to the Unseelie realm. And so this is where Queen Saracen made Callie her assassin, and Callie lived most of her life with this revenge and with this hate in her heart, with the end goal of assassinating the queen. So when the queen said assassinate Mendex, she said bet, because the next step would be her being a part of the Unseelie court. So this is Callie's ulterior motive all throughout the book. But there's also Mendex, who's in the background, who's hearing all of this yapping, all this clatter about Callie marrying Eli, and he's like kind of there in the shadows watching Eli feel like he can be all lovey-dovey with his pet, with Callie. Yeah, everyone thinks he's dead, but he's not, and he's waiting for the right time to present himself as alive. Eventually, Callie gives in to becoming Eli's fiance, or eventually becoming his wife. She really doesn't see any other way around it. Before we get on to chapter 22, chapter 22, I want to backtrack a little bit to whenever Mendex was stalking Callie. The queen gave her this liquid that makes her tell the truth, but it also makes her a little frisky. She tried to come on to Eli because she was, you know, lost in the sauce, but Eli was like, Callie, we can't do this. We can't do this. I know you don't really want this. Sent her to bed. She thought she had a dream about Mendex, but because Mendex was stalking her, she thought she was having a dream about hooking up with Mendex, but it wasn't a dream, girl. It happened in real life. It happened in real life. And this just shows you how unhinged Mendex is. And one of my favorite things, before Callie has confirmed that Mendex is still alive, is when he will talk to her in her head. Like, at the most unexpected moments, you just have this like one-liner from Mendex being like, I'm still here. Not saying that exactly, but just like saying something, and Callie's like, what? That sounded a lot like Mendex. I think he's haunting me. No, girl, he's stalking you. Which leads us to chapter 22. This chapter is one of those chapters that had me clutching my pearls. And I mean that with my whole chest. I have never read anything so possessive, so dominant, and an absolute display of the male ego than I have in chapter 22. If you need a little refresher, this is the chapter where Mendex makes himself known. Also at the same point where the Unseelie realm is under attack. At this time, Queen Saracen thought that Mendex was dead, and the only person who still was laying claim to the Unseelie throne was the Unseelie queen. And so Queen Saracen was like, we about to go dominate them bitches and overthrow that realm, and we about to claim it as our own. And so at this point, the Unseelie realm is under attack, but Mendex makes himself known to Eli and everyone around that he actually is not dead. And he locks Callie, Eli, and oh, by the way, Walter is there. We thought Walter got thrown over the Unseelie castle, but really Mendex threw him over the castle for real, but threw him into an Unseelie portal. And so at one point, Walter and Callie were able to find each other again. Callie didn't know Walter was alive. She thought he was dead, but they were able to link up. Walter knows that Callie's plan is to kill Queen Saracen, and he's been helping her behind the scenes this whole time. So yeah, Mendex locks Callie, Eli, Walter, and himself all in one room. He makes Callie drink that liquid that makes her tell the truth, but also makes her a little frisky. That fairy mead, if you will. And he is demanding her to... he is demanding her to display herself in front of everybody in this room. And it is so fucking crazy. I can't even, I feel like I literally can't even say a lot about this chapter in the risk of being demonetized from this video, but I will say the part that had me clutching my pearls the most is towards the end, where Mendex you know, does what he does. He, you know, how do you say, he takes his, I don't want to say juices because that just makes me feel he takes his specimen, that's worse. You know what I'm trying to say? He takes that and he shoves it in Eli's mouth. He said, "You better know whose lady this is." I mean, that's not a direct quote, but that's essentially, it was like a display, like, this is my girl. My girl. Remember when Eli saved Callie in How Does It Feel, where when she got stabbied in the beginning of How Does It Feel, he cried on her and like saved her life? Well, that meant that now Callie and Eli were tied together. So Callie is bonded to Mendex and tied to Eli. This is against the rules. You cannot be bonded and tied to someone at the same time. The whole Unseelie court discovers that Mendex is alive. They view Callie as a traitor because she lied to the queen. Although Callie did think that she killed Mendex, no one believes her. And so they throw her in prison. While she's in prison, Walter eventually breaks her out alongside Eli. And they're like, girl, we gonna get you out of here. We gonna make this right. We gonna go tell the queen that this was all some sort of misunderstanding. Mendex was scurrying back to the Unseelie realm in order to help. Queen Saracen did defeat the queen of the Unseelie court, decapitated her, had her head in a bag, threw the head at Callie. Callie knows that the queen of the Unseelie is unalived. During this interaction, Queen Saracen makes it seem like Mendex is dead. They say that, you know, he's actually dead. So now we think Mendex is dead again. We think he died in How Does It Feel, and we think he died again in What Did You Do? Making a long story short, Callie breaks out of the prison. She's determined to kill the queen. Mendex pops back up. He's not dead. I'm convinced at this point he's like a cockroach and will never die. But Walter has been behind the scenes this whole time looking for the second half of Callie's heart. He finds it, is bringing it to Callie to make her heart whole again. Callie finds Queen Saracen and was like, you thought I was fucking Artemi this whole time. Well, let me tell you what, you got the wrong one, bitch. I'm not Artemi. My sister was Artemi. You know the one you killed? Yeah, she was Artemi this whole time. And actually, Callie has been wearing a necklace with her sister's ashes in it this whole time. It was a gift from Eli. So all throughout the book, it's, you know, she has that little mention of the necklace that she's been wearing. Queen Saracen is shook by this. She was for sure that Callie was the Artemi. And Callie was like, no girl, you kill my family, now I'm here to kill you. But we did lose another beloved in this battle, which was Walter. Walter was killed. Walter's for sure dead, by the way. It's not like, oh, we thought he was dead, he's not dead. No, Walter, for sure, we saw him die on page. It ends with a note from the Fates. It essentially says, Callie, Eli, and Mendex are demanded before the Fates because you cannot be bonded and tied to the same person. You have to break the bond, break the tie, do something. Mendex and Eli are bonded to Callie. They're gonna eventually die. If they don't break a bond or break a tie, they're putting too much energy into Callie to keep her alive because both of these bonds are just going to kill her eventually at some point. So they're stuffing all of their energy into Callie in order to keep her alive. What is this motion? I don't know. That's how book 2 ends. So Eli, Mendex, and Callie have to go on this journey to find the Fates, which leads us to Where Did You Go? Now, I have read this book. I've read it. And oh, I would love to sit here and yap about it with you, but unfortunately it has not been published yet at the time of filming this video. I will say that this is one of my favorite books in this series in terms of character development. Interesting to see Callie, Mendex, and Eli have to work together. Mendex despises Eli. Eli hates Mendex, but there are times in this book where they have to maybe work together. The banter is really funny, and just the character development between all three of them I thought was really well. And this also, just in general, might be one of my favorite books in this series. What does breaking the bond tie mean? I don't know. It's very ominous all throughout the book. I really enjoyed this, and this book already left me fiending for the third book. We are almost to the end of this video, but luckily for you, I do have a little treat for you. I was able to get an interview with Janine O'Reilly, who is the author of this book and also one of my favorite people ever. This is the first time that I've ever done anything like this, and the interview was recorded over on Zoom, so it will go back and forth between whoever is talking on the Zoom call, so just keep that in mind with the next clip with the interview for Janine O'Reilly. But without a further ado, let's get into it. Everyone, I am joined here with Janine O'Reilly herself. She's the author of the Infatuated Face series. If you didn't know, everyone say hello to Janine. Welcome in, Jeneane. Thank you so much for joining us. I asked over on my Instagram the other day for questions that you may have for Jeneane. I will say that I did send her the most tame of them all. You guys are crazy. You guys are crazy. Which, if you guys follow Jeneane on Instagram, she doesn't hold back with her Q&As, and you do them every so often, don't you?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
they're fun. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. I am just unbelievably appreciative of you. I think you are just, I don't even have words to tell you how much I appreciate you and everything that you've done for the Infatuated Face series. I'll literally get choked up for the series and just everything. I just can't thank you enough.
Well, the feeling is so mutual. I was saying this earlier in the YouTube video that this is kind of where it all started for me too. Like the video, your book, if I never read your book, then I feel like I wouldn't have had like the takeoff that I had. So like
You
the
would have.
feeling is so mutual.
You still would have. It's so funny. I was thinking about this earlier, and I remember I'm in an author group, and when you made the video reacting to how does it feel and it went viral, several of my author friends were like tagging me in it, and that's how I saw it. And I remember watching you, and I'm like, oh, she totally has to have like hundreds of thousands of followers. And I clicked, and I mean, do you remember what it was at that point? It was like 2000 or like
Yeah. When
22
when I
maybe or
uploaded that
like
video, I finished your book at like 1 a.m. and obviously I was feeling some type of way about it. At that point when I uploaded the video, I only had like 300 followers, and then it went viral overnight, and I woke up and I had like 5,000, and then it just kept steadily growing from there.
I remember just like looking and I'm like, oh, like you just have such an incredible personality that like just like lures every like I'm like, I trust you with my life, you know what
Oh
I
my
mean? And
God.
you're so relatable. Like you just have such a magnetic, charismatic personality. Like the second I saw it, I was like, oh, she's gonna be like a big deal. Like
Oh my
I just
gosh.
and you're like such a legend.
Ah, I appreciate all the kind words, but this isn't about me, Janine. This is about
I'm
you.
like,
We're
oh,
here
how the
to
turntables
talk
really I'm
about your
interviewing
books.
you.
I mean, I'm not mad at it. Thank you. Thank you so much for saying all these things. But we have lots of questions about the series that is out so far for the public. It's the first two books, but I was lucky enough to get an arc of the third book, in which I have read. Before we get into questions about the series, I do have a few questions for you, and just being an author and just as a human being. And a lot of people were interested in how did you even decide to become a writer or an author in the first place?
Yeah, so I initially it's funny because I remember being like 13 years old and I remember writing like under the covers. I'm supposed to be in bed, and I remember like writing little things on a notebook, or I was like a very avid reader. But I never, ever, ever had it in my head that like it was possible for me to become a writer, because I just don't know why it never ever clicked that that was something possible. So I continued to be an avid reader, and I went to school, and I initially was going to be, um, I went to school for physics. And after my husband and I had three kids, and it was just chaos, and I'm like, it's easier if I just stay home. I had a therapist actually that recommended that I channel some of my anxieties and issues. I have agoraphobia and PTSD, and they recommended that I find a hobby and channel myself into it. And so I'm pretty sure they meant like knitting or something, but I was like, I'm gonna write something, because I believe KDP, like self-publishing, wasn't around until like 2007, I believe. And so that was just never ever something that I ever thought about could happen. And then my Grammy is a librarian and has been for like 40 years. And I was like, oh, I'll just pub something so that she can hold it in her hand in Pennsylvania or whatever. And after I did it, it kind of just took off. And the first book that I did, I freaked out when I sold like 40 copies just out of nowhere, because it was literally just for my Grammy. And so I unpublished it immediately. And I was like, no, this is
And
not
how
okay.
does it feel it isn't your first book? I know
No,
that you have
technically it's
another
not.
book called Skullduggery.
Yes,
And I have to
yes.
say that I did try to scour the internet trying to see if anyone would give it to me.
No, it was out there for like maybe like weeks, like months, like 2 months maybe. And then um, I started to sell copies of it randomly. And I had an editor with it that there was like sapphic content in it, and she pulled it was just like a mess. And I didn't know any better. And I was just doing it for funsies for my Grammy. And as soon as it started to sell, I was like, no. And I pulled it. And then I was like, you know what? About 4 chapters into writing it, I knew that I could never, ever not write again. Even at that point, I had planned on no one ever reading it ever, but just for my own sake, it was like something I'd never experienced. It just clicked and everything. It was like I knew that was what I was meant to do. And I feel so lucky that I just kind of stumbled upon it. And I was like, I will never not write. And then after things started taking off, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll try and take this seriously. And that was How Does It Feel? So, and it's been just a whirlwind ever since. It's been such a blessing.
Oh, that's such a good story to start from somewhere of like, I don't know, maybe feeling reclusive and maybe feeling like it's like this one thing that you have and you can put all of your maybe your positive energy or like this outlet into and like look at what it's
Yeah.
become. That's amazing.
It's been, and it's so cathartic too, to be able to, especially be able to write in some of your traumas. And it's just very therapeutic, to be able to get some of your feelings out there. I think I have never been one that expressed my feelings very well, and it just, everything clicks. I've always been kind of a storyteller, so I just feel, I hope everyone is as lucky as I was to be able to find their purpose and the thing that they were meant to do that really brings them joy, because it really is, it's a feeling unlike anything else.
Before you were an author and you were reading, you were a reader, what
Mhm.
was the types of books you like to read? Did you have a specific genre you like to stick to or maybe a favorite author?
Absolutely. I am a big Tolkien head. I That was my first introduction into fantasy. Was technically Bruce Coville Into the Land of the Unicorns was my very first
I love
introduction
that
to
title.
fantasy. Thank you, Scholastics. I love you. And then immediately I just poured myself in. I like 13-year-old me poured into Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, and everything, and I've been there ever since. So, but now I read anything. Anything I can get my hands on, I will read. I don't have a specific genre that I stick to at all. I love all of it.
Is it challenging to like read books while you're writing a book, or is it easy to separate those two things?
I can only speak for myself, but I do actually struggle, especially so I won't when like currently the things I've been drafting have been fantasy romance. So I will not read fantasy romance
Mm.
while I'm drafting. I just don't want to accidentally like have something in my head from a couple books ago and you know what I mean? Like I just want it to stay very separate. My deadlines have been I am so grateful that everything just kind of took off as it has. But because of it, my deadlines have been just nonstop, really, really, really tight. And so I haven't had tons of time to read in the last few years, which has been really, really odd for me. But I find it really hard after I'm done drafting. If I'm really happy with the book, it's everything I wanted. And then I have a hard time. It's like I'm in a permanent book slump for a while and I can't find something else that like hits that. And so that's unfortunate.
What does that writing process look like for you? Like, do you have to get yourself in the mindset of the characters and let them tell the story, or do you have a clear picture in mind when you start a book? This is how it's going to go.
I generally it's a little bit of both. So I how does it feel I was a pantser? Which in writing terms just means I flew by the seat of my pants. I didn't plot really anything out. And I had an idea in my head of the whole story. It plays out for me like a movie, so I know every scene, everything. And then it's just the task of kind of breaking it down and like adding in the little tiny bits and in how does it feel. I initially wrote it because I was very tired of reading things and knowing about two chapters in where it was going. And
Mm.
I don't say that to be cocky. I wanted somebody to trick me, you know, really,
Yeah.
really well. And so when I was writing that, check, no, when I wrote that, I
Yes.
really, really wanted um, where it's going. You know, for everybody, because I know there are so many people out there that are so good at predicting and picking up little pieces of the story, and it's very predictable that I wanted every element to be unpredictable. So as I was forming the story, you know, the characters, they kind of do develop their own personalities and kind of it's I I look at it like I'm kind of guiding them and I'm like, here, do this, and then they'll
Yeah.
kind of find their way for how they want to do that. So it's been
That's
good.
so fascinating to hear about. Uh, I am appreciative of every author out there who can just give us such a good story. And that's true with How Does It Feel is when it first starts out, you're like, where is this going? Everyone says this is a fantasy, but how is this a fantasy? And then it transitions into something completely different from how it started. And then it just keeps transitioning into something that you never thought it would be. And thus my very unhinged reaction to this.
Which I
So
loved.
thank you for
Yeah,
that.
it's been very fun. The series, that one I pantsed and I wrote How Does It Feel in about 3 months, and then all of the ones after because of the series and the way that I was my brain is not that big and I needed to formulate everything. So I did plot from there on. I knew how I wanted the entire series to go in my head, but the little, you know, workings of how to make it all happen, I did plot out.
Well, this is a perfect transition into more about your books and the questions that the people had specifically about how does it feel and what did you do, which a lot of people were curious about where did the idea from this series stem from?
It's such a good question. I am a hobby mycologist, which means basically I look at a lot of fungi and I'm out in the woods for long periods of time by myself, which I unfortunately now that I'm writing don't get to do as much. But so on forays, I would go out into the forest by myself for hours and hours looking for mushrooms. And the majority of my family, half my family's in Austria and the other half Ireland. And so they're very big on you don't go on mushroom rings, big no no, like big hard no no. And I'm like, oh, but what if he was really hot? And what if? And so I think it just spending a lot of alone time in the forest, it kind of just developed, oh, this would be a fun story to write. And it just kind of spiraled from there.
Oh, that's super fascinating. So the idea of like a mushroom ring was something that you grew up with. You knew
Oh
that
yeah.
this was a don't. Is there a superstition behind that? Is there a
Oh
reason
yeah.
why you
Yeah,
shouldn't?
yes. And it's actually really interesting. So in lore, they say that you don't step into a fairy ring of mushrooms, which we've had in our yard before too, which are very cool and fun. I have pictures from like 10 years ago with photos. I should
They're
find those.
super cool. Yeah.
They're so interesting. It's actually a formation from generally when like a deciduous fungi, the mushroom is actually the fruiting body. So it's generally from when like a tree stump or something, that the mushroom has kind of formed the mycelium in a circle around where there would be like a tree stump or something like that. So that's technically why it makes a ring. But the lore is that you don't step in the ring, or and I've heard several different things, but from our side, it's you don't step into the ring, or you are basically sent to the fairies, but in a very bad way, in a very bad, you're trapped, you can't get out kind of a way. And just kind of playing with that idea. I think mushrooms and the forest and fungi are so interesting to me, in like bioluminescent mushrooms. There's so many magical bits that it seems so natural to me to want to add in a little bit of a romantasy flair into that lore, and just go against everything my family wanted. So they
I
were
love
so
that
mad. They're
so
like, don't
much.
do it. I'm like, I'm sorry.
That's so cool, but also at the same time, because I read the book, I didn't know anything about the lore. I have in fact stepped in a ring of mushrooms every time I've seen it, just in
I'm
case.
sure you're fine.
Well, when Callie decides to step in the mushroom portal, she lands on top of our beloved Prince Mandex. Where did the idea of Mandex come from? Sounding like, listening to what you have said, it sounds like it was like this alternative of like if stepping in the mushroom ring what came true. Is that kind of where Mandek's character builds from, that idea of like going through a mushroom ring and being with the bad fairies?
Yeah, I really liked the idea. Um, I love, as almost everyone I think does, enemies to lovers. But I kept reading these enemies to lovers, and I'm like, that's not enemies to lovers, or that's not a true villain. Like, that's not, which they're all fun and enjoyable. But I really wanted to craft a villain that you didn't really want to like, but you couldn't help but like, because he's possessive and broody, and he has these characteristics that like are not okay. They're straight red flags, but you're like, oh, but he loves her and he's
Right.
obsessed with her, and I love him. And so Mendax kind of came mostly from the idea of how bad can I make him, but still have people enjoy and want to like fall in love with him. And towing the line of that was actually quite difficult. He's unhinged, and there were several things that I'm like, I'm either going to get canceled and everyone's going to hate this, or they're going to love it. So I'm so glad they loved it.
Yes, and it's interesting to see the way that his character progresses from How Does It Feel into the second book. And because I've read the third book, I know the kind of character development he's had in the third book, which is, it's, I think it's seamless and it makes
Oh,
sense.
thank you.
And one of my favorite parts that you'll have to tell me if this is okay to put in because it's kind of a spoiler for the
Okay.
third book, is when Eli was looking at Callie and Mandex, and he was like, she doesn't even realize the impact that she has on the people around her because of the way that she was impacting Mandex.
I think that's okay. Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
okay for sure.
But like seeing the way his character develops and whenever he finds someone that he's truly in love with, because in the first book we know that he cannot get along with anyone. I mean, he's had
Yeah.
lovers, but it's purely for the gratification of having a lover. But he's never
Mm.
been in love with someone in the way that he is with Callie, and just seeing him go on that journey, it's cool. It's is he still very unhinged? Yes. Yes. But does he have a soft side? It's debatable. It's up in
Right.
the air.
Definitely for Callie, he does for sure.
Yeah.
It was so fun to write his character growth and transition. As just somebody from book one, he, as you said, he doesn't like anyone. He, because of his own traumas and things, he can't like anyone. He pretty much hates everyone. And he, the whole first book is him kind of being perplexed that he really likes Callie. And
Mm-hmm.
as the series progresses, I think about like me in a relationship with like my husband, you know, and the person that I was initially is so vastly different than how I am now. And
Right.
I think when you find someone that all you want is to make them happy and care for them, by default, you do change a little bit and you bend a little bit, and even if it's unintentional. And I really hope that that comes across by the end of the series that he, you know, I think he slowly humanizes himself a little bit in still very much Callie only. Everyone else, I will, you know, just chop him up. But I think as his progression continues, he you definitely get to see some more sides of him, especially with Eli and some of the other characters that I don't know. I was really excited to see his like development go that way.
Talking a lot about Mandex, but there's another character who this series revolves heavily around, if not more around this character, which is Callie. The second book, Callie, it's obvious she's keeping secrets, even with the people that it seems like she could trust and the people that she loves and she wants to protect. She's still keeping secrets. Is this something that we can expect from her in the rest of this series? Or why is Callie keeping all of these secrets from the people that she loves?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think if you've read the first book, um, there's a lot of the first and second book are the biggest revelations of why she is keeping secrets. And as you dip into her past a little bit, you kind of learn her origin story almost and some of the reasons why she did some of the things she did. And I think all of her motives are strictly self-preservation at this point and just trying to make it through and survive. And the only way that she knows how and the way that she was raised definitely lends more along with Mendax's line of being a little bit morally gray. She doesn't think about things the same way that we think about things, and sometimes it's safer for her to keep secrets and you know, divulge things as they come across. So I cannot confirm nor deny if she has more secrets, but yeah.
It also like it seems it definitely what you said, it seems like it's coming from this place of her backstory and the trauma with that and you know almost like guarding herself of she can't
Mhm.
really let anyone in because when she did it was like this unideal outcome and
Yeah.
it's probably stemming from the trauma of that. What I also find fascinating about Kelly's character is how it almost seems like I don't want to say she hyper focuses on, but the way that she's so technical and
Mhm.
she does have that backstory of being a scientist and how does it feel? And I feel like a lot of those aspects, like that like became her identity and that shows in her character of being like this nerdy science girl. What was the inspiration behind making Callie so technical in that way?
I really I love women in STEM and I am a woman in STEM and I really love the representation of seeing my initial focus with Callie was especially in book one, I really wanted almost like a female MacGyver. You know, I but also lending that she could do it with her brain, that just because she, as a woman, was in this wild situation of being in a Fey land and she had no powers, that wasn't going to stop her, and that she could use her brain to get out of the situations with her background in science. So, several of the elements that she uses are just nothing more than her using her brain, and I really. I would love to see some more of that in books because I think of it's I wanted it to be a little bit more relatable because we don't all shoot magic out of our fingers and our, you know, whatever. And I think that frequently women are underestimated by their intelligence and their capabilities. And I really wanted that to show with Callie that she could do so much more than even these people with magic and all these various things by using her brain.
Yeah, that's definitely clear in the moments where she's in like this life or death situation. You can tell she just dials in and looks at things very strategic and looks at like, okay, there's some way that I can make it out of it. I just need to figure out what that is. And I definitely
Mhm.
love that about Kelly's character for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, we have to move on. Listen, when I first read How Does It Feel, for some reason I didn't bat an eye at this character or at this scene. I was like, okay, yeah, this is weird. This is definitely weird, but I'm kind of rolling with it. But when I asked over on my Instagram, a lot of people were like, okay, if you get a chance to talk to Janine, ask her why about the bog. What happened? Like when you were writing those scenes with the bog, what was the reason for that character in this story, and where did the ideas come from, and why did you do that to us?
I love this so much. I get asked, I think I wrecked people. I think I passed on some trauma with the
I
bog,
yeah,
and for that I apologize.
I was surprised
Um,
about the number of people asking about the bog.
I you know, when I added in the bog, it was a scene that required the bog. I needed you to feel everything. I wanted you to feel happy, sad, hopeful, scared, suspense. I wanted all of the feelings, especially in book one. And the bog kind of served as a catalyst for Callie in a moment when she's feeling terrified, scared. She's literally trapped in a space that would, for anyone else, she's a goner, um, which he kind of served as a catalyst to. That's when you start to see her character break down and you start to see the real Callie emerge. And the first time you get a glimpse behind her veil is that scene with the bog. And I it's so funny to me. My dad actually read that, and I was like, "Ooh, how's this gonna go, Dad?" Like, oh, and I was waiting for him to be like, "Oh my," but thankfully we just don't make eye contact at Thanksgiving or anything, and it's fine. But he was definitely. I wanted him just to be a disgusting, icky embodiment of something that she was able to conquer. And also add in a bit of that fantastical, whimsical element.
Yeah, because when we first meet the bog, it's like Callie's introduction into the Unseelie world, and it's like,
Mhm.
oh, is this how this is gonna go
Right.
from this point on? And if she can get through that, then she's got it. I believe in her.
Yeah, definitely. I unironically is one of my favorite scenes in the very first moment that you are like, oh, and I don't want to ruin anything, but there's very specific
This whole
verbiage.
video is spoiler recaps for the first two books. So anyone who's made it
Okay.
this far in the video, they're here for the
All
spoilers.
right. Well, the line where she mentions she's in the fight with the bog, and then she mentions something about scooping and then his eye popped out with the spoon. And it catches you off guard intentionally so. And I really, that's the first bit that you get of Callie that you're like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. That was quite drastic. And then, she bludgeons him with a brick. And that's the very first bit that you start to see of the real Callie and where
Mhm.
she goes from there. And I think that's probably unironically one of my favorite scenes in the whole book, just because um, that's the first bit that she's like, okay, here we go. This is what's
Yeah.
going to have to happen. And she'll protect herself.
From all the characters, from Mandex to Eli, who are like polar opposites of each other, and then with strong characters like Callie, If you had to be stuck on a deserted island with any of your characters,
Mhm.
who would you pick?
Oh, that's such a tough one. Um, my gut is to say Mendax because he could fly me out of there. We could get off the island. But if we had to stay on the island and I couldn't leave, I think I would pick Walter. Um, he's a little bit of both. He will take anybody down for you, but he's very sweet and gentle, and I think he'd be a really nice companion on a deserted island.
That is true. For some reason, I was thinking like if I was to be stuck on an island, for some reason I would want Eli, because Eli just seems like he seems like a good time. He's gonna make me laugh, but he's also
True.
like serious and he's gonna get things done that need to be done. But Walter's a good choice too. I feel like I couldn't
Oh,
tolerate Mindax. I feel like he would hurt my
oh, he would
feelings.
probably kill me and eat me like on
Uh,
an island. I don't think I'd last long with him. Yeah, though
no.
I do forget how funny Eli is. So actually, that would be I would like to laugh a lot on my island. So
Yeah, just to kind of take my mind off of being trapped
yeah,
on an
good point.
island. Okay, so everyone is excited about your next book that is coming out. I had the honor of being able to read it early, so I know the things that are happening in the book. But if you could give maybe like a one word or maybe a full sentence other than the dedication, which, by the way, your dedications are my favorite dedications ever. And
Oh,
I mean that honestly. Ever since I've read your books, every time I open up a book, I'm like looking for the dedication and I'm like, let it be a good one, let it be a good one.
oh, thank you
But no
so
one
much.
compares to a Janine O'Reilly dedication. So,
Oh,
that being said, what is one word, maybe a few words, that you can tease us with for your next book, Where Did You Go?
oh my gosh. Well, thank you about the dedications. That means so, so, so much. If I could pick one word, I would say fate. Fate would be my description.
Yeah, I don't like it
We're
though.
like deep in thought now.
I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, but I don't like it.
I know, right?
Know you have announced your release for the fourth book in the series as well, but what can we expect in the future for Janine O'Reilly?
Awesome. Yes, book four release is June 10th, and I'm so, so, so excited. We just revealed the title to be Can You Take It, which it was so fun. Everybody's just going bananas for it, and I'm so excited. Everyone's enthusiasm. I cannot express how much it means to me. You spend hours doing these, and like I'm on a deadline right now, and so I'm spending 12 hours locked away in a room, and I love it, but I miss seeing people, and so when there's such enthusiasm surrounding the book, it makes it all worth it. And to hear people saying that they haven't read a book in 16 years and they picked this up and it's just life changing. It means so, so much to me. And I absolutely cannot thank everyone enough. I am working on something right now. I'm finishing it up now. And I think we'll be announcing it somewhat soon. But I'm very excited about it. I absolutely, I'm so bad at keeping secrets, and I cannot wait to be able to finally talk about this.
Are
It's going to
you
be very cool.
sticking in fantasy or are you branching out to different genres?
Um, so in true me fashion, that's a very difficult question to answer. I'm writing something now that toes the line very much. It's somewhat contemporary with fantasy elements. So,
Okay.
um, definitely I wouldn't consider it a full fantasy, but it's definitely a contemporary with a whisper of fantasy elements. And I'm very curious to see what categories we're going to market it in because it's different. So I'm really excited.
That sounds really interesting. Oh, I'm excited for anything that you do. Like I said,
Oh
I
my
was
gosh,
trying
thank
to
you.
scour the internet for all your past works.
I'm offering like $100 to burn that. I'm like, please, like people will post skullduggery and I'm like,
What I
I'll
wanted
pay
to do
you
when
to let
I
me
saw
burn
you at
it.
Readers Take Denver, I wanted to present you with skullduggery, but I couldn't
I
find
would have
it
taken it
anywhere.
and I would have run. You wouldn't have been able to catch me. I'd have been like
That's what I
steamrolling.
wanted to do. I
Oh
can't.
my
I look
gosh.
forward to everything that you do. I'm super excited, and
Oh,
I
thank
think
you.
your success is well deserved. I didn't react to a book like that for no reason. It was definitely all of the work and the energy that you put into it, and all of the success you had is because of all of the work that you continue to put into this series. And it's
Oh,
so fun
thank
to be a
you.
part of the community of people, which also I think has like some of the most unhinged people. But I love that
Oh,
about everyone.
absolutely.
I
A
love that
hundred
about
percent.
everyone.
It's so funny. I have never had such a sense of community. I've always been a very isolated person, and that's just been what I've known. And it's been so unbelievably, it's been my favorite thing in this community of like-minded people. When you find your support system and you find,
Yes.
and I know so many of you guys think that like it's when you make a post or something that it's just like, oh, whatever. Or sometimes those posts are the only thing that keep me writing when I'm having like a really awful day. Those comments or the post of you guys enjoying it. And, I think sometimes you guys think they don't make a difference, and they make all the difference. I know so many of my author friends that we genuinely could not continue to do it if it were not for the support. And just the things that you guys think are just silly little, like even this, like seeing my book in the background, like I can't tell you how much that means to me. It's like it's just inexplainable how much that means to us as writers. And even just when you guys say that you enjoyed it, or even if you're not a poster online or anything and you guys just like something, it genuinely is such a simple thing, but I can't even express how much it like means to us. Like it's very vulnerable, and I think a lot of authors don't really talk about how vulnerable it is when you pour your heart and soul into something and then you're like, here, take it. And to have such a community of incredibly wonderful, like-minded people is just, it makes all the difference. I could not be more appreciative.
Yeah, it's the sense of community that just means absolutely everything. And I can imagine like even as a creator, it's like I'm putting myself out there, but I'm doing it every day. But as an author, it's almost like you're putting all of your work into like this one thing. And once it's out there, it's like hours and hours and hours of work that you want it to be received. And when it is, and you form this community around that, it just is so special always. And I am honored to be a part of this
It's
community. You're
all,
active on on Instagram. Are you still going to be active on TikTok as well?
it's hard to say with all of the upcoming changes and with our world seemingly on fire right now. It's hard to say what's going to happen. Honestly, I will be on Instagram, and I have the O'Reilly's, Janine O'Reilly's A Ride or Dies Facebook group on Facebook. But I've never been good at marketing on anything, and I've been so incredibly blessed that you guys are great at marketing, because I would have burned in a fiery pyre if it was solely up to me. So it's TikTok has turned into kind of be my like goofy place. TikTok and Threads. Threads, I'm unhinged on
Oh my
Instagram.
gosh, I know that's
It
how Threads is. It's just the land of the lawless is
it
on
is.
Threads.
It's the smoking room of Instagram, and
Yeah.
I'm just loving it. But TikTok has just turned into kind of be like my fun little space to interact with you guys. But yeah, most news and things like that's going to be on Instagram.
Janine's next book is coming out on Tuesday, January 28th. The last book in the series is coming out, you said June 10th. of
June
this
10th.
year, which appreciated. We don't have to wait forever for the next book, which is super cool. Make sure
Oh,
you
thank you.
follow Janine on her Instagram. It sounds like that's where she is going to be posting all of her updates for all of her upcoming releases, and we are all going to be so excited for it. But I know
Oh,
everyone
thank
watching
you.
this video is specifically excited to finish this series and
Oh,
see where it
thank you.
goes.
Thank you so much. I thank you. I appreciate it.
I just love her so much. She's the coolest person ever. But that brings us to the end of this recap. If there's anything that you feel like I missed out, please leave that in the comments below. If you have any theories for what will happen and where did you go, please leave that in the comments below. I am so excited for you guys to finally read the third book in this series so we can all talk about it together. But that is all that I have for you guys today. Until next time, okay, bye. Love you.